Welcome, writers. I am so happy to have Deborah Ann Lucas here with me. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sarah.
And I have known Deborah for a fairly long time, and I know her to be incredibly well read and thoughtful about writing. And so, writers, I wanted to have Deborah on today to talk about a really important topic that we're going to dive into here in just a minute. But, writers, let me introduce you just a bit. So, after a lifetime of physical, emotional, and financial challenges, Deborah's superpower is persevering through difficult times. A certified book coach in fiction and memoir, she works with women to find the confidence and clarity to draw from their personal struggles, the stories they want to tell. Deborah has completed two memoirs and two novels based on her life experiences with art, spirituality, and the horses that inspire her. Dance While the Fire Burns, a memoir of family, identity, and dreams, will be released in 2025. She and her husband live on a 20-acre farm in north central Illinois with two horses, a German Shepherd, and a gray cat. And writers, if you didn't catch quite from the bio, the reason why Deborah is here is because she is going to talk to us about persevering in our writing, even when the going gets tough. So let's just dive right in, shall we?
Let's go.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say that all writers at some point are going to face difficult times because we are all humans and we know that the human condition is going to include a certain amount of challenges and suffering. And some, unfortunately, will face circumstances that are even more challenging than others, but everyone has to go through tough times. So, what kind of challenges do you see as being particularly difficult
Um,
for
I,
writers?
I've had a fair wide variety of challenges, so I can kind of speak from my own
Yeah.
experience. Kind of the first one that came to mind was family illness or death, because it really pulls you out of your life and disrupts everything. Not only, in terms of your physical presence, but also your emotional, mental states. The next one I think would be acute illness of your own, including medications that can disrupt your ability to think clearly. Yeah, I went through that with my knee replacement infection, and I was in the hospital and rehab for a month the first time. And chronic illness is another one where people, and I know a lot of writers who kind of talk about this a lot on social media about the constant pain, anxiety, depression. And it seems that writing is impossible. And it may be for a period of time, but there's lots of inspiration out there for people that overcome it. Financial issues can cause a lot of stress and require you to work and make you keep you from attending conferences and workshops and things like that. And that can really suck your creativity out of you.
Yeah,
So,
especially when you're having to worry about um I mean the added stress of not knowing if you can pay the rent
right,
or
right,
afford your grocery bill that month and things like that. It's really hard to write, especially creative writing, when you're coming from a place of stress and uncertainty because it's harder to be more free
right.
in your creative work during that time. And I mean, you've alluded to the with the illnesses. I mean, energy too, just like all of these things that you mentioned really sap a person's overall energy. You mentioned the medications with, with perhaps messing with like mental
Brain fog.
agility and things like that. But I mean, some can also just make you flat out tired where you're sleeping all the time and you have to rest and things like that. So yeah, those are all incredibly difficult. But there are some writers who unfortunately, like maybe they're going to be dealing with these things long term and they still want to be able to write. And so there's a difference between having, like the flu for a week
Right,
and
right,
having to take a break. And then there's a difference between maybe having to embrace what a normal, whatever that is for you, what a normal situation is going to look like and having to adapt around that. So, um, I don't know if you have any thoughts around any of that.
I do. Um, there's lots of things you can do. Um, I think the first thing you need to do is accept your situation, and then you become a problem solver. Um, and then you look for ways to relaunch your writing practice when you can. But you've got to be kind to yourself until you do, and just, believe that, if this is if you're um this is your passion, you feel like you have to write something, you're compelled to write, that you will come back to it. And just hang on to that thought even though you don't believe it right now. You know,
Yeah.
it's your mantra. I believe I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and if you really are struggling with getting back, you can ask, why or why not? Why am I not writing right now? And maybe even journal on it. Um, Reconnect with your passion. So, what is it that you love in life? Write about that. Or if you're really, compelled to write about your family or this story about this, girl that had to deal with this robot, you can really, it's great getting lost in that kind of a fantasy. Um, be sure to make a place to write, a place and dedicate, even if it's just a little section of a desk somewhere, or maybe even just a laptop computer and chair that you go to write all the time. Schedule it, put it on your calendar, and even if it's 10 minutes, little bits. And one of the best things that I found being able to establish a writing practice, especially when I'm struggling with it, is that I've trained my partner.
Mhm.
I've explained to him time and time again until he got it, that this is my work and that it deserves respect. And so when I'm working, don't disturb me unless it's an emergency. And he's gotten to the point where he's so good about it that if I'm working through a meal, he'll bring me a sandwich. So it's possible. It's really great. Um, Let's see. Reward yourself even for the littlest things. If you sit down and write for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, reward yourself. That's you're a writer. Don't let go of it. And yeah, I got a few more. Should I keep going?
Yeah,
Or do you
yeah,
want to talk?
absolutely. I
Okay.
I
Okay.
think that writers will appreciate any kind
All
of
right.
help they can get from someone who's been
Okay.
there.
Find positive triggers. So one of the things that helps me when I can't get back into my book, because you got to hold the story in your head, even if you haven't written any of it. You kind of got to be in that story in order to write it well, or even to just outline it or do the blueprint. And so one of the things I like to do is that I read my own writing right before I go to sleep, even just on my phone. And then I go to sleep and I dream about it and I wake up ready to write, believe it or not. And if you don't have something you want to read of your own, pick your favorite writer,
Mm,
and they will often inspire you. So, yeah, keep a notebook or a notepad at hand at all times and get into the habit of using them. Hang on to those glimpses of ideas, even though you don't have the brain power or the time or the focus to act on it right now. Keep track of it. Um, and then organize. That's the
yeah,
biggest, hardest one. But if you keep at it, you'll make, small progress. So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I know that it can be difficult for writers at various stages of life, whether it's illness challenges or maybe even like stage of life. I can
Right.
speak from the experience of being a mom of young children and things like that, where there are certain phases of life where the energy is just
Mhm.
very, very low. And during those times, it's so toxic to compare.
Yes.
Compare your output, your work schedule, like fill in the blank, anything.
Yes.
Compare that with someone else who is not dealing with the same kinds of challenges that you are dealing with. So I would also contend, writers, that you just put the blinders on and focus on yourself and what you're doing. and instead of trying to live up to somebody else's expectation. But I don't know if you have any experience with that too, Deborah.
Oh yeah. Well, and like one of the challenges is getting older. I'm 74.
Mm,
And so my memory is not as great as I used to be. And since I write from my life, often memoir, that can be challenging. But I find that when I get into the writing process, if I trust it, it will come. And if I can't find the word, then I put a TK and I come back and figure it out later. Um, yeah. And you're right about the everyone has their own practice. So somebody writes every day. You don't have to write every day. Uh, if you're thinking about your book, you're writing. I really think that us taking time to contemplate, to give us a space where we don't have a lot of the craziness going on, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, to just think about our book. That's part of your writing practice.
yeah.
So yeah.
But then you also can't have the expectation that you're going to crank out a novel every 6 months. Like, so that's the other
Correct.
thing, writers like
Right.
stay in the work and be diligent however you can do that for
Yeah.
you and your life, but then don't expect the output to match people who are able to spend more time, more energy, more resources.
One of my favorite examples is one of my favorite writers is Anthony Doerr, All the
Mm,
Light You Cannot See. And he has a lot of short chapters. And I saw an interview once and he said the reason is because I was teaching full time, I had a family, I was didn't have a lot of time to write. And so when I could grab a half an hour to write, I would write a page or whatever, and then that would become a chapter. And then, if it was a week later or whenever, I would write the next one. And I think it took him 10 years, if my memory serves me. And he won, not only is it best-selling, but it's a Pulitzer Prize winning book.
yeah.
So, and a movie was made of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great example. I think sometimes we overlook the amount of progress we can make in small steps, because over time, those small steps become big steps. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, but sometimes, I mean, you've mentioned times in your life where you've been in the hospital and whatnot. Sometimes maybe we need to take a break. I
We
mean,
do.
we encourage people to stay in their writing as best they can, but sometimes it's probably the healthy thing to do by stepping aside or putting the work aside for a bit. Um, so how can writers maybe feel released to do that? We don't want people feeling guilty for taking care of themselves.
I think if they believe that they will go back to it somehow, some way, they will find a way to go back to it, that can relieve the guilt. Um, and there are numerous examples, like for instance, people worry because they start having, family problems with their caretaker, of their parents, and they're already old and they think I'll never get this done before I die. And there are so many examples of people writing and publishing, even for the first time in their 70s and 80s right now. And so it, it's not too late. You'll get there if long as you don't give up. That's all
Yeah.
you have to do with the guild is just say, I'm not going to give up. Yeah, this is going to take a while. Okay, I won't touch my book for a year. Um, yeah, you kind of know my story. Back in 2000, kind of when all the whole, you know, pandemic started, I had big plans. It was my 70th birthday, and I got color for the first time in my hair. And I was going to finish my memoir and publish and do all these things, right? And that's when I got my leg infection. And actually, it's been 5 years of in and out of the hospital. I'm looking at maybe my sixth surgery coming up. And and It really, at times, I get down about the fact that I feel like I've missed my opportunity. You know, the train went by and I missed it on the last car is gone. But then I just kind of kick myself in the rear end and say, Deborah, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You've done it before. You know, once I even took my laptop into the ER and was doing editing in the ER in a wheelchair because you wait a long time in the ER. So you don't have to do that, but it's just an example of find a way. You'll figure it out.
Oh gosh, I feel like that is just the perfect way to show the writers what I know about Deborah and why she is talking about perseverance, because she really has been through the ringer and does not give up. I love it. I love it. So there are going to be some writers here who are definitely resonating with this message here that you're sharing with us. And I know that they're going to want to connect with you. So how can we do that online?
You can go to my website, which is deborahannlucas.com, and sign up for my newsletter. And there's a contact in there that you can contact me with. It's basic, or you can just send me an email at contact@deborahannlucas.com. You can read some of my writing on Substack, also under Deborah Ann Lucas. Although the story is down the long lane,
Yeah.
because I live down. I'm kind of more fortunate than a lot of people. I've worked really hard to get here, but I live in the country. I've created this really sanctuary space for me, and that's my backyard. So I'm really lucky because I can get away from the noise of the city and everything. So it helps me to write and to heal.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I'm
And
on social
you're,
media.
I was gonna say you're
Deborah
on
Writer
Instagram?
anywhere too. Pardon?
Yeah. Can you say that handle again? Sorry.
Leaf. Well, this is a town I live in. Leaf, like on a tree. River.
Yeah.
Writer. Writer.
Yeah.
And if you put that into Google, you'll find me that way too. Also,
Perfect.
I'm an artist, which I didn't mention before I started writing. I've got 2 degrees in art. So I'm kind of, they say do one thing, and I'm not very good at that. I don't take that advice. But I found a way to integrate my writing and my
Yeah.
and my art. So I'm hoping to put something out that people will be able to see. And of course it's centered around horses because
Yeah.
horses helped me heal. They
Yeah.
taught me how to breathe.
No,
So
I love that. And writers, I subscribe to Deborah's newsletter, and she's always sharing things about writing, but also about your life on the farm and with your horses and with your art. So it's a lovely way to get to know Deborah, but also to connect with her over
yeah,
writing
yeah.
and living and all the things.
It's
So
kind of long, but it's got a lot of good pictures in it, and it's
yes.
only once a month.
There we go. Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, Deborah, I just want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing your personal experience here. I know that's going to help a lot of writers who are also going through difficult times. So,
The other thing is I
yeah,
am also a certified book coach. So
yeah.
I have some opportunities for that I think we'll just put it in the notes. But I think
Sure.
what I'm going to do is offer a discount on one of my packages for anybody that subscribes to this program, because it's a great program. This
Cool.
Novel Kickoff. And so, yeah, get in contact with me, and if I'll do whatever I can to find ways to support you. I've got more on my list that I didn't go over. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
you know, watch my
thank
Substack.
you.
I'll put them on there.
Thank you so much. That's incredibly gracious. And so writers will have information and all the links for Deborah in the show notes. And Deborah, just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for doing this, Sarah. You're a great service to writers.
Oh, thank you. All right, writers, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.